everyone. Ready for some seriously cool tips to help you think and speak in English more naturally?
Sounds great.
Awesome. So we're taking a deep dive into this podcast episode called How to Think and Speak in English, Podcast and Chill Beginner. I
Okay.
think you're really going to love this one,
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to make English a bigger part of your everyday life, without it feeling like a chore or anything.
Right, right.
What I thought was so cool about this episode
Yeah.
was that it really focused on those practical strategies that you can
Uh-huh.
actually work into your routine.
That's so important.
Totally.
Right.
And it's not just those textbook exercises either,
No, it's about making it real.
Exactly. And it all starts with this kind of deceptively simple idea.
Oh,
Starting small.
okay.
Don't overthink it. Just start incorporating easy English thoughts into your day.
I like that.
I was going through the source material
Yeah.
and I was thinking, this is so smart. It's like all those micro habits everyone's talking about.
Right, like in productivity and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But applied to language learning.
Oh, that's a cool connection.
Right.
Yeah.
So it might seem basic,
Uh-huh.
but the episode really, really emphasizes the power of starting with those simple thoughts in English.
Yeah, I can see why.
Let's be honest, trying to jump into complex sentences right away,
Oh, yeah,
it can be pretty intimidating.
totally.
Who wants to feel overwhelmed before they even start,
Definitely not me.
And I love how they gave those super practical examples in the episode.
Oh, yeah. What were some of them?
Just thinking about regular things you do during the day,
Mm-hmm.
but just framing them in English.
Okay.
So instead of thinking, I need to go to the store,
Yeah.
you could think, I need to buy groceries.
Oh, I see.
It's such a tiny change, but it starts to build that habit of thinking in English more and more.
Right, like laying the groundwork.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So why is that so important?
Good question.
We're talking about literally training your brain to process the language in a different way.
Absolutely. Think of it like exercise.
Okay.
The more you use those English thinking muscles, the stronger they get.
I like that.
And then the easier it becomes to think in English without even realizing it.
It's like building that fluency from the inside out.
Exactly.
And the episode doesn't just stop at those little moments of internal thinking either.
Yeah, right.
It goes all in on making English part of your entire day.
Wow. That's great.
As we're talking about this, I'm
Yeah.
thinking
Mm-hmm.
these tips would be awesome
Yeah.
if you had a group of friends learning together.
Oh, definitely. That would make it so much fun.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. Well, this approach really emphasizes
What?
using English beyond just formal study time.
Right.
It's about finding ways to weave it into your everyday life,
Mm-hmm.
which brings us to the idea of exposure and immersion.
Yes. That's key.
You don't have to understand every single word perfectly at first,
Oh, for sure.
but surrounding yourself with English as much as possible is super important.
Absolutely.
So what are some practical ways to actually do that?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. How do you actually immerse yourself?
Yeah.
I think back to when I was trying to pick up, another language,
Mm-hmm.
and it just felt like such a slog sometimes.
It can be, for sure.
So what did this episode recommend?
Well, I really like some of the suggestions they gave.
Like what?
Things like reading the news in, simplified English, listening to English music, always a fun one,
Oh, yeah.
or watching shows and movies with subtitles.
I love that idea of using entertainment to learn.
It makes it so much less intimidating.
Right? Totally. It's not like you're studying, you're just enjoying yourself.
Exactly.
But I'm curious, do you really think it sinks in that way?
It absolutely can.
Really?
It becomes less about memorizing everything and more about absorbing the sounds and patterns of the language subconsciously.
Oh, that's interesting.
And speaking of absorbing patterns,
Yeah.
this next tip is one that a lot of people find a little funny.
Oh,
But hear me out.
okay. I'm intrigued.
Are you ready for this?
Hit me with it.
It's the talk to yourself in English thing.
Oh, I've tried that before.
Yeah.
I feel so silly.
I get it. It can seem strange at first,
Yeah.
but the science behind it is solid.
Really?
Have you noticed any difference in your pronunciation since you tried it?
You know what? I think I did.
See?
But maybe that was just because I was paying more attention to how I was forming the words.
That's a great point.
Even if it was just to myself,
Exactly. And that's part of what makes speaking out loud so powerful. You're engaging a different part of your brain when you're producing those sounds, not just listening to them.
So it's like a workout for your mouth and your brain.
Precisely.
That's cool.
And just like with any workout, consistency is key.
The
Right.
more you do it, the more natural it will become.
So what are some ways people can actually put this into practice without feeling awkward, I mean?
Yeah, that's the tricky part.
Besides, having full-on conversations with themselves.
Right, although I admit, some days.
Oh, me too.
But anyway, the episode suggests simple things like
Yeah.
describing your actions as you're going about your day.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm making coffee, or I'm getting dressed,
Oh, I see.
or practicing introductions in front of a mirror.
Ooh, I like that mirror idea.
It helps you get comfortable with those expressions.
You could pretend you're having a conversation.
Exactly. Like you're practicing for a big presentation.
Yeah, or like a job interview.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the less awkward it will feel.
I can see that.
You'll internalize those sentence structures and pronunciations,
Right.
which is essential for fluency.
Okay, so we've got starting small,
Uh-huh.
making English part of our day,
Yes.
and talking to ourselves.
Don't forget that one. What else did this podcast have in store for us?
Oh, there's more. This next one almost felt like a cheat code,
A cheat code.
but in a good way.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's all about learning common phrases.
Ooh, I like that.
It's like having a whole toolbox of ready-made expressions.
That's a great way to put it.
You can use them in different situations.
So instead of trying to construct a sentence from scratch,
Right.
you can just use one of these pre-made phrases.
Exactly.
That's brilliant.
Think about it. You're at a coffee shop.
Mhm.
They ask, what would you like?
Yeah,
Instead of panicking, you can confidently say, I'll have a latte, please.
that makes so much sense.
Right.
Or those little phrases like, excuse me or thank you.
Exactly. They smooth out any conversation.
I never really thought about it that way.
And these phrases, they can act as building blocks
Building blocks.
for more complex communication.
Oh, how so?
As you learn more, you can start combining them,
Mhm.
adapting them,
Right.
gradually expanding what you can express.
It's starting to feel less like a chore and more like a fun puzzle.
Exactly. That's the spirit.
Okay, this is already blowing my mind.
You ready for more?
Hit me.
All right, hold on to your hat because this next one is a personal favorite of mine.
Ooh. Okay, I'm ready.
It's a technique called shadowing.
Shadowing.
It's a game changer
For what?
for pronunciation and fluency.
Okay, tell me more.
It's actually simpler than it sounds,
Right.
but the impact is incredible.
Oh.
So you listen to a native speaker
Okay,
and repeat what they say
got it.
as closely as possible.
So, like, you're copying them.
Exactly, trying to match their speed,
Hmm.
their intonation, their pronunciation. It's like a musician learning by ear.
Oh, I see.
You're absorbing the nuances of the language,
Wow.
not just the words themselves.
That's a cool way to think about it.
So you're becoming their vocal shadow.
I like that.
But, it can be tough to keep up with a native speaker.
Yeah, especially when you're just starting out. It feels kind of intimidating.
It definitely has a bit of mystique to it, right?
Totally.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
You're not just memorizing words.
Right.
You're absorbing the natural flow and rhythm of English.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the stuff that textbook learning often misses.
Like what?
Like how native speakers chunk phrases together,
Ah.
where they emphasize
Yeah.
even those tiny little pauses.
And all the stuff you don't even realize you're doing.
Exactly. It's like unlocking the music of the language.
I have noticed
Yeah.
that there's a difference between someone who reads English, like really stiff and robotic,
Oh, yeah?
and someone who just like flows.
Totally. It's night and day.
Maybe that's what I've been missing.
It could be. And the cool thing is,
Yeah.
you can shadow anything you enjoy.
Oh, really?
Remember that podcast episode we started with?
Yeah.
You could probably find a transcript online
Okay.
and practice shadowing parts of their dialogue.
Oh, that's meta shadowing.
I like that.
But what about like the level of difficulty?
Good point.
I'm not ready to take on Shakespeare or anything.
Definitely start with something comfortable.
Right.
Song lyrics, movie scenes, even those language learning apps.
I see.
Anything with audio you can mimic.
So it's about training your ear as much as your mouth.
Exactly.
This is amazing. I already feel like I'm leveling up.
That's awesome.
But, I have a feeling you're going to tell me
What?
that nothing can truly replace real-life conversations.
You know me too well.
Right.
You can master all the techniques,
Mhm.
but there's no substitute for actually speaking with other English speakers.
That's what the episode emphasized, too.
Right. It's crucial.
Okay, so why is conversation so important?
Well, for starters.
I get that it's the goal,
Mm-hmm.
but what makes it such a powerful learning tool?
Because it forces you to think on your feet.
Oh, Right.
to adapt to the conversation, to actually use what you've learned.
It's like a test drive for your English skills. That's a great way to put it.
And just like with driving, the more you practice, the more confident you become.
Right, but what if you don't have a lot of English-speaking friends or colleagues?
Yeah, that's a real hurdle for some people.
That's where the episode's suggestion of language partners comes in.
Exactly, or those English conversation groups.
Oh, yeah. And luckily, there are tons of resources out there.
For sure, both online and in person.
That makes me think
About what?
about doing all this with a group of friends.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
Right. It just seems so much more motivating that way.
I completely agree, and that's the perfect segue to our next segment.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
Maybe. But we'll definitely dive deeper into those conversation opportunities.
Okay, can't wait.
And how you can adapt all these awesome tips for a group setting.
This is going to be good.
Stay tuned. So before we get into that whole group learning thing, let's do a quick recap,
Okay,
just to make sure we're all on the same page.
sounds good. There were so many cool ideas in that episode.
It's easy to get lost.
Totally.
So starting simple, right?
Yes. That was our first big takeaway.
Like those baby steps.
It's all about building those foundational habits.
Right, like those tiny little changes in how you think about the language.
It's a whole different approach.
And then we moved on to like making English a part of your whole day.
Yes. Not just a study thing.
Right.
Like, it's got to be integrated.
Totally. And that's where we talked about all those fun ways to immerse yourself, right?
Oh, yeah, the immersion stuff was gold.
Reading the news in English, jamming out to English music,
Always a good time.
watching shows,
With subtitles, of course.
all those things you'd probably be doing anyway.
Exactly. But with a language learning twist.
And don't forget about talking to yourself in English.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
Even though it felt kind of weird at first,
I get it.
I think it really helped.
I think so, too.
Maybe just being more aware of how I was forming the words.
Right. The awareness is huge.
Oh.
Okay, and then we got into what felt like a secret weapon.
Oh, what's that?
Learning common phrases.
Yes. The power of phrases.
It's like you've got this whole arsenal of expressions.
Exactly. Ready to go at a moment's notice.
Instead of having to build a sentence from scratch every time.
It takes so much pressure off.
And for pronunciation and fluency, we had the shadowing technique,
Oh, I love shadowing.
mimicking native speakers.
It's like you're stealing their mojo,
Right.
but in a good way.
And, of course, we can't forget about real-life conversations.
No way. That's the ultimate test.
Like, all those other techniques are great,
Yeah.
but nothing beats real-world practice.
It's where the magic happens.
And then lastly,
Yeah.
taking some time for reflection,
Oh, that's so important.
like journaling in English
Mm-hmm.
or recording your thoughts.
You got to track your progress.
Otherwise, it's easy to forget how far you've come.
Definitely.
So I love how this all ties back to,
Right.
making English an actual part of your life.
Not just a chore.
Not something you just check off a list.
Right. It's got to be integrated.
But I keep thinking about group learning.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking about that.
Don't you think all of this would be even more powerful if you were doing it with friends?
Oh, 100%.
Like, just imagine
the energy,
the fun you could have.
like night and day compared to doing it alone.
Totally. And think about all the creative activities you could do together.
It's like the difference between working out alone and joining a fitness class.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
group dynamic just changes everything.
And it's all about tapping into that social element of language.
Right. It's how we're wired.
And the coolest part,
What?
you can tailor all these tips
Uh-huh.
to fit your group's needs and interests.
It's like a custom-made language learning adventure.
I love it. So let's brainstorm.
Okay, let's do it.
Imagine you've got a group of friends
Right.
who are all committed to improving their English.
They're serious about it. What are some things they could do together?
Well, first of all, you could create some kind of structured routine,
Okay, I like that.
like incorporating those individual tips we talked about.
So like a schedule.
Yeah, but not too rigid.
Right. Yeah.
Like maybe everyone agrees to spend 15 minutes a day thinking in English.
Oh, I like that. And then you could share what you thought about.
Exactly. During a weekly check-in.
So everyone stays accountable.
And motivated.
And what if you added like a game element to it?
Ooh, fun.
Like each week you focus on a different theme.
Food, travel, music, whatever.
Exactly. And then you challenge each other.
To come up with the most creative sentences.
That's brilliant.
Right. It keeps things interesting.
And it helps you learn new vocab.
In a way that actually sticks.
And speaking of vocab,
Yeah.
remember those common phrases?
Oh, yeah, the building blocks.
What if your group picked a new phrase each week to focus on?
That's a great idea.
And then you all try to use it in your conversations.
Like a little competition.
It's like a mini challenge.
Keeps everyone engaged.
And on their toes.
And think about shadowing.
Ooh, yeah. Shadowing with friends.
Instead of just doing it on your own.
You could all choose a scene from a movie.
Or a TV show.
And practice shadowing it together.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
Right. And then you could give each other feedback.
Yeah, and support.
It sounds way more fun than drills from a textbook.
1,000,000 times more fun.
And those shared experiences would naturally lead to more conversation.
Exactly. You're practicing without even realizing it.
Okay, this is making me so excited.
Me too.
So what about finding those real-life conversation opportunities?
That's the big one.
We talked about language partners and conversation groups.
Yeah, but how do you make that a group activity?
That's the question.
Well, you could explore those online language exchange platforms together.
Okay.
Maybe even create a shared profile
Oh, that's smart.
so you can connect with other groups.
Who are also learning English.
Right, like a global language exchange party. I love it.
Or, if you prefer meeting in person,
Mm-hmm.
you could look for English conversation clubs or events in your area.
Oh, yeah, there are tons of those.
And go as a group.
There's something about that shared commitment
That's support.
that can really boost your confidence.
Especially in a new social setting.
It's like having your own little cheering squad.
Exactly. And remember, even if you can't find a group that fits,
Yeah.
you can create your own.
Oh, that's a good point.
Just spread the word.
Get some friends together,
Set a regular meeting time.
and boom. Instant English-speaking community.
It's easier than you think.
This is blowing my mind.
I know, right? The possibilities are endless.
And don't forget about reflection.
Oh, yeah, we can't leave that out.
Encourage your group to keep those English journals
Or those recordings.
and share their progress with each other.
It's like a built-in support system.
Everyone celebrates their wins together.
They troubleshoot challenges.
They keep each other motivated.
It's a beautiful thing.
And the more you interact,
The more you realize that language learning,
yeah,
it's not just about grammar and vocabulary.
it's so much more than that.
It's about connecting with other people,
Sharing experiences.
expanding your understanding of the world.
Beautifully said. And that leads perfectly to our final thought.
Ooh, I like final thoughts.
This one's a good one. So we've covered a ton of ground today.
I know, right? It's been a wild ride.
From those tiny habit changes.
To the power of group learning.
But as we wrap up this deep dive,
Into all these awesome tips.
I want to leave you with a little challenge.
A challenge. Ooh, I like challenges.
This one's a good one.
Okay, hit me.
So remember how the podcast we explored
Yeah.
really focused on that individual learning journey?
Right, it was all about solo techniques.
For boosting your skills.
Exactly. But we spent a good chunk of time today.
Talking about group learning.
And how powerful it can be.
We brainstormed a bunch of cool activities, too.
From shadowing together to creating your own little English community.
So here's the challenge for you, dear listener.
Okay, I'm ready.
Think about how you would adapt these tips for a small group.
Like my friends?
Your friends, colleagues, fellow language learners.
It's like taking all this inspiration and turning it into action.
Exactly.
Make it your own.
So how would you do it?
That's a good question.
Maybe you could create a weekly English hour
Ooh, I like that.
where everyone speaks only English for a whole hour.
That's a good one.
Or how about a phrase of the week challenge
Where everyone tries to use a specific phrase.
in their daily conversation?
Oh, I like that. You could even choose a phrase from a song or movie you all like.
Make it fun and memorable.
The possibilities are endless.
As long as it works for your group
Right. Tap into those shared interests.
and that motivation,
Remember, language learning shouldn't be a chore.
it should be enjoyable.
Engaging, even a little bit playful.
Absolutely. And when you have that support,
Yeah, the community around you.
it's so much more rewarding.
So go out there and experiment.
Try these ideas, tweak them, adapt them,
Make them your own.
and most importantly, have fun with it.
Don't be afraid to get creative.
Think outside the box.
Who knows, maybe you'll come up with even better strategies.
Ones that we haven't even thought of.
And remember, this is a journey, not a race.
There will be bumps in the road,
Frustrations, maybe even some awkward silences.
but that's all part of the process.
Embrace those challenges, learn from them.
Keep moving forward.
Every step you take, no matter how small,
Brings you closer to fluency
and confidence. Who knows, maybe by sharing these tips,
and building the supportive community,
we can make the world a little bit more connected,
a little bit more understanding.
one conversation at a time.
That's a beautiful thought.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive.
into the wonderful world of thinking and speaking in English.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Happy Englishing!